Welcome, Sagittarius, to your in-depth monthly horoscope for September 2024 for the Ascendant, the Sun or the Moon. I'm going to share some standout details to look out for, but then on your screen I'll share your event chart right at the start of the month. As ever, this always holds a lot of important information. Then as September unfolds, I'll give you all the key dates and influences particularly relevant to your sign. Now, we always need to be mindful of your ruler Jupiter, and as we come into this new month, Jupiter is still in a little bit of a challenging relationship with the planet of limitation, Saturn. This really reached its peak on the 19th of August, but as you come into the month, there is going to be some kind of relationship question that will need answering. But Pluto, the planet of transformation, is reversing back into your sector of everyday money, self-worth and values on the 1st. But as it does forge a very important link to Venus, the planet of relating, and that's going to be a very important alliance which helps you to decipher some of those relationship quandaries as you enter September. But when it comes to your career, the new moon of the 3rd gives you an opportunity to set your sights high. Also, Mars bustles into the part of your scope for 2 months on the 4th, which is to do with business. So if you are someone who wants to do something more dynamic and you're very ambitious, the combination of that new moon and Mars will help you. But Mars also in this location can be significant about your sex life, so please stay with me for more on that too. Now, we are going to have on the 9th Mercury returning to the sign of Virgo. It has been here before, of course, before the retrograde began. And you have an opportunity, if something has been outstanding around a business matter, to get some clarity on that. We have a lunar eclipse, the first of a new series, on the 18th, but it has a touch of mystery threaded through it. I'll explain just why. The 22nd, however, is an opportunity to really extend your social network. We have the autonomous equinox. It does forge a great link with Pluto too, but Venus moves on the 23rd into a very key location. If you have been trying to hum and ha about a relationship, that's going to be a big moment for you. But as the month draws to a close, the opportunity to connect with people who are important to you is really highlighted. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. If you're new to my channel, it's lovely to have your company. This is a community. If you have any thoughts, please do share them. If you're a returning visitor, as ever, all your views and interactions are truly appreciated. If you've yet to sub, please help the channel to thrive. Click that sub button and bell notification symbol. I'm a consultant astrologer. If you'd like to have a one-to-one with me, please see the link below where you can check out my testimonials of what other people have found doing so. And finally, I've launched my year 2025 personal horoscope forecast offer. You can order that now, but get the rest of this year free. Also, in my special package of 30% off, you can get your life roadmap report. This will give you searing insights into the patterns that have played out in your life so far, and the combination of the two give you lots of information to guide your future prospects, and it is fantastic value. Please see below for more. So on the screen now, I'm showing your event chart. I mentioned in my introduction about Jupiter, and you can see that continues in the sign of Gemini. But Gemini is not actually the perfect host for your ruler, because Gemini is about quick exchanges, often sometimes reactions, not necessarily reactions that have been particularly thought through. So when it comes to relationships, and particularly at the heart of last month when Jupiter and Mars combined, there may have been an opportunity to really share how you felt with enthusiasm, but there may have also been a tendency to over-egg the pudding. And as we go into this new month, with Saturn checking Jupiter in your 7th house, but Saturn in your sector of emotion, factoring in how you feel is very important, even if you would like to think the best of someone and really hope a relationship can progress. But also Neptune in house 4 has been creating some disorientation since 2012 off and on for you about your home and emotional life. And that's in a very complex right angle with Mars, like Jupiter, in your sector of relating. So whatever relationship scenario you're faced with at the start of this month, whether it's an awkward line manager, whether it's a friend who hasn't quite been chiming in the way that you would normally like to see, or it is a love relationship, this does require some care. But I mentioned about Venus, and Venus starts this month in your sector of friendship, but also your long-term hopes. But also in the sign of Libra, it rules that sign, so it's a good place for it to be, and it does forge an impressive link with Pluto. What you're being asked to do here is think Pluto early on the 1st of September. Think about your values. Venus is about values, but also does the thinking and the values match a long-term prospect? Because as Pluto inverts back into Capricorn later in the day, that's your sector of foundations. And if you can't really see that someone would fit into your life in terms of the long term, or they don't share your values, those tense angles between Saturn and Neptune and Jupiter and Mars, it will help you to decipher exactly how this is playing out for you. Because if you're not sure, and that's really what Pluto and Venus reveal for you, it's up to you really to make a big decision. And one of the things that can guide that is that Mercury, the planet of communication, starts the month in the part of your chart to do with freedom and independence, but it's also in a tense right angle with Uranus in your sector of responsibilities and obligations. So if you feel obligated in that business or friendship relationship or that romantic tie, and that's making you feel really quite edgy and maybe creating quite a brittle atmosphere, that could push you through the first week to try to recapture your freedom. But as the month begins, we do also have the Sun in a very dominant position. We have the new moon on the 3rd. And if your life isn't being affected by difficulties around relationships, that new moon definitely helps you to pitch your hopes high. So is there someone influential you need to reach out to? Is there a job or an employment agency that can act as a conduit towards something bigger and better and brighter for you? Because the move of Mars on the 4th and out of that dreamy drifting and enervating square with Neptune brings it into the 8th house. The 8th house is about desire. If you want to improve your lot in terms of what you're earning, Pluto going into 2nd, everyday money, Mars moving into 8, longer term investment, shared resources, can be to do with property, is going to give you a lot of drive in the following 8 weeks. But Mars moving into that area is very much about instant gratification. So if there is somebody that you find quite mesmerizing, Mars can prime that up. But Mars in Cancer is an interesting ingress, because Mars in Cancer is not at its best, it's in its fall, and it can be quite prickly. And Mars in the 8th house can be very blunt and direct. But because the host is about emotion, if you really want to get close to someone, you will have to try to garner a rather careful approach, I feel, because you'll need to go a little bit quicker than they may be ready for. Could actually spoil a potentially promising opportunity in the following 2 months. But we do have, in the 2nd week of this month, an opposition between the Sun and Saturn. And because Saturn was conflicting Jupiter at the start of this month, we know that the Sun coming into the picture means we have a T-square. So as much as the Sun squaring it with Jupiter can make us very optimistic and hopeful, I feel it's important not to over-egg the pudding, particularly if you're trying to impress someone influential. Don't tell them too much. Try to stay as relaxed as you can and let it all flow naturally. And also it's important to be mindful of not getting into a role that doesn't really work for you in terms of your family life. Perhaps the hours aren't quite right, or maybe it's somewhere outside where you'd feel comfortable working. So those can be scenarios that you do need to consider in week 2. But on the 9th, Mercury returning to Virgo could mean that some information or a contract you've been waiting to come through can finally manifest itself. And that could be a huge relief. In fact, the true picture can emerge by the 11th when Mercury ends its post-retrograde shadow. Because the Mercury retrograde may only be 21 days, but the whole process is about 9.5 weeks. Because we have the pre-retrograde and the post-retrograde periods, and for the whole time communications aren't necessarily going to flow quite as we'd like. Of course, there are opportunities with Mercury retrogrades to reset, recalibrate and rework situations, and I feel that if you have been working in that way, some good news can emerge at this point. But the 18th, that lunar eclipse, it's very complex because it's the first in the series, as I mentioned. Goes between the two signs of Virgo and Pisces. So the first one is Pisces. Pisces is the sign of culmination. We have Neptune coming to the end of its 164-year journey through the entire zodiac, and it's going to move fully into Aries in 2026. It's going to have a brief sojourn into Aries next year. But here, being very, very close to the moon, it makes you hypersensitive. So in terms of your professional interactions, if there is a situation which feels very demanding or perhaps a bit unbending when it comes to some of your emotional needs, the opportunity that you thought was right for you might not be so right for you if it doesn't feel or work for you emotionally as much as the more ambitional side of your nature. But that's the backdrop energy that lasts for 6 months. So any professional opportunities for the next half year, you need to make sure that you feel comfortable with them. But then on the 22nd, it's a wonderful opportunity for you to switch the focus onto your social world, your network, linking with people you feel really comfortable with, mixing and mingling as we have the autumnal equinox. This is a very important part of the year in Western tropical astrology, ushering in Cardinal Quadrant 3, a 13-week period where who you know could be just as important as what you know, Sagittarius. But certainly your enthusiasm and that part of you that can be very friendly, open-minded is going to be emphasized. But ironically, Venus pitches out of that sector and into the sign of Scorpio, where it is detrimented. But Venus in Scorpio for you can actually be an asset, because if you have been struggling all through this month to try to sort out that relationship scenario and you're still not quite sure, you may decide with Venus moving into Scorpio to finally call it quits. But conversely, it could also flag up a time when you start to think about someone from your past, or you feel very nostalgic for a past partner, even if you don't get in touch with them. Equally, there could be someone you meet socially that you really like, but you may not openly share how you feel. Venus in Scorpio can be quite guarded. It's a very committed position for Venus to be in, but the 12th house means that a secret alliance could call out to you. But if you are wanting to build a new future in a brighter way, a way that's friendlier, easier going and less caught up with politics, I think Venus does point towards thinking about bringing any unsatisfactory relationship to a close. Mercury moves to replace Venus on the 26th, and then we have a cazimi with the Sun on the final day. You could end this month with a celebration. It could be getting together with the people that really matter to you. You may want to follow your favourite sports team. The 11th house can be very much about that too. But the 11th house is also where we want to get in touch with something that goes beyond the physical goals and ambitions that often dominate our lives. It's somewhere that we just feel really sated in terms of a sense of inner inner bliss, and that can call out to you as this month draws to a close. So look forward to a jolly time as this month comes to a close. Have a great September, Sagittarius. All the best and goodbye.